Teamstevens White versus Himanshu Keskar. I'll leave the analysis up to you. Teamstevens, baby. And it's over. Now let's go back. Let's look at this realistically. Sicilian defense. Nice job. New move, queen take d4 that I saw Judith Pogar play in a game I was analyzing over hers. I decided to try it. My opponent actually added a6 into the variation, so I pretty much had to fiend for myself from this point. But it's pretty much scripted. Here I thought my opponent would go ahead and push, but of course I'd have dropped back to d8 or probably went to a4. It depends. But I prevented it. And I basically wanted to create a damage to his pawn structure, which he particularly, for the most part, is okay. But sometimes it takes a strong player, definitely, to find some of the moves that the computer is able to find. And in this particular point, rook e4 was the actual response to the situation, both threatening the pawn on e6 as well as the bishop on e3. Alright, now what we have is, I needed to see, was he desperate enough, since his pawn structure was damaged, to take on c2, and he was. And so that allowed me to push threatening the bishop while simultaneously threatening to play queen f5 check with a fork against the rook on c2. So he decided to sacrifice for 2 pawns for the rook versus actually just moving the rook and giving up the bishop. Now I'm collecting back on the pawn, and I cannot allow him to occupy open file with his last rook. And surprisingly enough, he traded his last rook. When down in material, do not trade pieces. Try to trade pawns instead. But in this particular case, he got a mass of pawns. So maybe if he would have kept or tried to keep the rook on board, he could have found some type of salutation. Check here, check here. Queen d7, queen b, queen g8 check, followed by capturing over there. And now it's just a matter of finding a wonderful checkmate. Teamstevens representing to the fullest, baby. See you at the Virginia Close.